If you're going to steal from the best, but you can't quite match the best in execution, you have to add something special. That's what undermines developer Fat Shark's approach with Warhammer, The End Times, Vermintide, as it takes the Left 4 Dead formula of 4-player co-op first-person slaughter and translates it to the Warhammer fantasy universe. While Vermintide is always an enjoyably hectic and bloody time, it's very much the student, not the master. Vermintide certainly makes a great first impression, steeped in deliciously overdone Warhammer fantasy flavor. A gang of heroes with nicely complementary class abilities arrive in the medieval city of Ubersreich just in time to save it from an onslaught of Skaven ratmen. Tasks range from the pleasantly mundane, like making a high-stakes food run to make sure your stronghold doesn't starve, to the more bizarre and fanciful, like climbing a wizard's bizarre and beautiful tower to ask for a favor. Gothic architecture, narrow winding streets, crumbling monuments, and a terrifying and beautiful night sky all bring the setting to life, while strong vocal performances do the same for the characters. Warhammer is always trafficked in archetypes, so as you'd expect, you'll find a haughty elf assassin whose quick hands with a bow make her the party's Legolas-style machine gunner, trading barbs with a religious dual-wielding witch hunter, and a jolly, bloody-minded dwarf.
You don't look good, even for you, dwarf.
None of the characters or their exchanges are quite as memorable as those between, say, Left 4 Dead's Lewis and Francis, but they do keep reminding you of what an oddball group you've got around you. The problem is that the Skaven simply aren't that menacing an adversary, despite the armor and pointy objects. A single sword swing will scythe them down by the dozen, which makes the melee combat feel oddly weightless and a little unsatisfying. They're so trivial, and your resources so plentiful, because ammunition is near meaningless in this game, especially since most characters predominantly use melee attacks, that there's never a jolt of fear as the Skaven come pouring over the walls or out of their holes. The fact that each mission is short and self-contained, lasting just about 20 or 30 minutes, means that the stakes for failure aren't that high. The focus on melee also seems to force teams to stick together, which saps it of some of Left 4 Dead's tensions between risk and reward. Despite the use of special enemy types that are lifted straight out of the Left 4 Dead playbook, like a pouncing assassin that jumps onto players, pins them to the ground, and starts tearing them up until a teammate rescues them, just like Left 4 Dead's Hunter, Vermintide's challenge is more about crowd control and individual reflexes than planning and team tactics. So you're left with a lot of hectic, atmospheric sprints from point A to point B, without much connective tissue between one mission and the next. Those sprints can be cathartically chaotic, as you and your squad mow down legions of Skaven and operate like a fire brigade, trying to hold a key location or collect precious resources from a deadly arena. But they don't have a lot of tension or storytelling, environmental or otherwise. You'll run these missions a lot, because Vermintide is built around a loot and crafting system that encourages you to play missions again and again, with added challenges in the search of a better drop. It's an effective hook. I was sold on doing loot runs after my Empire soldier replaced his clumsy blunderbuss with a deadly new sniper rifle. But I also became frustrated at how much of my gear was basically trash, and how some of the best groups I played with just wanted to go through a level again and again, until they had the routine down to a predictable science. Then we'd all go back to the inn, melt down our loot to create new gear, or unlock some upgrades. The use of different classes and the evocation of the Warhammer setting is enough to make Vermintide a competent twist on the Left 4 Dead formula, but it doesn't employ them well enough to surpass its inspiration. Even at its best, Vermintide's co-op horde mode lacks suspense, and its addictive loot chase can't fully replace that. As any Skaven would tell you, there are better things than being a rat in a maze. For more on Warhammer, stick with IGN.